Hi, with Julian on the brown note on the day of mourning in Australia for the Queen, or I'm doing 4 album reviews to try and get some out of the way. A review of Hot Chip's latest album, Freakout release. I'm a long-term fan of Hot Chip. It says they were formed in '95 in London. Alex Taylor and Joe Goddard being the main pairing. But they didn't release stuff for a while, and I actually got into them on their first album, Coming On Strong, in 2004. It was irreverent, it was fun, it was iconoclastic. Tracks like Crap Craft Dinner, Down With Prince, really good stuff. Very low key, and it, like, if you were listening to that kind of music at the start of the 2000s, there was all these really interesting acts that weren't guitar based. LCD Sound System, The Knife, just lots of really interesting sort of more synth based stuff, yet not in the realm of futuristic synth necessarily, but almost like a new form of indie music, and they were very sort of in that bracket, but they really hit their stride with The Warning in 2006, one of the best albums of that decade. Over and Over, tremendous track. The title track, tremendous track. Boy From School, probably in my top 10 of the whole century so far. Still love that track. And but Made in the Dark, another really strong album after that. 3 in a row that I really liked. After that, they've never made bad music at all, per se. I've seen them live several times. Great live show as well. Ready for the Floor from Made in the Dark, another one that was an absolute belter. So they can fill their whole set with absolutely fantastic music. I'd go and see them live at any point. But it started to become not so much a law of diminishing returns as more polite music and more sort of relationship based, slower, less irreverent music. And I think I'm like a lot of Hot Chip fans in that I want an album that is just absolutely crazy and less polite and less about relationships and a bit more sort of Down With Prince, I guess. So their new albums there, I actually kind of liked A Bath Full of Ecstasy. I thought that was, in a way, them pushing a bit more outside of that polite, mid-ballady sort of zone. I can't say I've gone back to it or that I remember a great deal from it. But their new Freakout release, it's their 8th, and it is unusual for them because normally they're very consistent, and that's almost to a fault in that stuff that stands out is not to be found. Here it's the opposite. The first 4 tracks on this are the best run they've had on an album since The Warning. Every one of those tracks is absolutely fantastic, and then everything isn't. So the opening, Down, just completely great. The meters, Carlene and the Groovers, loud guitars like Over and Over, thank you, fat sound, and like much of this album, the lyrics are quite bleak. That one's awesome. Eleanor is fantastic, high energy, mid-tempo electro pop, really reminded me of Cut Copy in that first decade of this century, and almost like 80s sort of Electric Dreams sort of film music as well. Freakout released a title track, one of their hardest driving and most brilliant tracks ever. It's fantastic. The vocoder like Battlestar Galactica or the Chemical Brothers, Music Response, Surrender. What an album that was. Absolutely magnificent album. Yeah, just like really messy and loud and massive and passionate vocals. I like the Needle Drop saying that they do the polite banger, and that's like Ready for the Floor better than anyone. They really do. But this is probably their least polite banger. And Broken as well, just another great one. It's a ballad in essence, yet it's still got a fair rate of knots about it. Very empathetic, bleak lyrics as well. All these 4 tracks are the best run they've had for a decade. Amazing stuff. Brilliant EP if they'd have done it as an EP. Wouldn't be surprised if all of those were singles. Really good stuff. All of those would drop straight into a live set. Are they at the point where they're making albums to add 2 more tracks to a live set? They've got 4 here, easy. Unfortunately, it's quite a long album. It's my version is 12 tracks. It's got an extra track on it, but probably that's over 50 minutes. And from track 4 on, it is a law of diminishing returns. You could take any one of those tracks and say that it was quite pleasing, but bland, but combined in a row, it's their Achilles heel, which is not being exciting enough, being in this pocket. I thought time built up quite ahead of speed, but overall it's too long. Lyrically, I'm not that into like relationship lyrics. They're very general. I mean, if you can do relationship lyrics that are personal, that's one thing, but if they're sort of generic, I just don't like them. I'm not really into it. Every track on here has got good musical ideas, but not quite enough. I really miss the irreverence and iconoclasm of their first sort of releases, where they've sort of grown up too much, I think. I thought like there's a track, The Evil That Men Do, which is arguably the worst, yet also the one that I had the most fondness for. It features a rapper, Cadence Weapon. What a name. Awesome. Now, it is a misfire, a little bit embarrassing at times, but the fact that it actually steps outside the box and is, ambitious and taking a gamble and willing to faceplant, I want more of that. It's the better tracks that are just too mid all the way through. So, unfortunately, even though I still love them, even though they've got 4 brilliant tracks, if you're a Hot Shit fan, you have to get this album for the first 4 tracks, because they're up there with their best tracks. It's just this sort of, I don't know, mid yacht rock synth pop that occupies the rest of the album that becomes progressively a law of diminishing returns. So unfortunately, Hot Shit Freakout released, despite having some of their most exciting music in a decade, I'm going to give as an overall album probably a 4 out of 10, which isn't great.